Welcome back to the Capes and Tights podcast. I'm your host, Justin Soderberg. We're back for another episode with Jonathan Hedrick. He returns after being back on here back in July. This time around, he's here to talk about Dream Master, his new book with Demetrius over at Black Box Comics. We also talked a little bit about the recount and other things at the end, so check that out as well. But most of this episode is talking about Dream Master coming to you November 30th at your local comic book shop. Before you get started here, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and on Twitter, as well as visit capesandtights.com for articles, reviews, and opinions and all that kind of stuff from the world of comic books and geek culture. But this episode is with Jonathan Hedrick talking about Dream Master at Black Box Comics, available November 30th, 2022. Enjoy, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast there, Jonathan. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me back on, Justin.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's been only, 6 months or so, or less than that, probably. We're on in July to talk about other stuff you were doing. And it's funny, since then, which I want to talk about towards the end, but since then you have released 2 one-shots that you were not talking about yet when we recorded in July. So that's kind of funny.
Yeah. Well, yeah, a lot can happen in 6 months, right?
Yeah, exactly. So we're here to talk Dream Master, new comic book by you. You have Luigi Baricelli as the artist and Ruben Quarto.
Yep.
Colors.
The colors.
DC Hopkins on letters, and obviously it's over there at Black Box Comics. And I'm not even going to try to say Demetrios' name. No, Zaharakas.
Yeah, you probably did it better than I could.
Well, it's this great thing called the internet, Jonathan. You just look up how to say someone's name.
I've tried that before, but it has failed me before too.
So that's the book. And just start out just quickly before we dive into it. Tell me your solicitation that you tell people what the book is.
Yeah, I like to tell people the elevator pitch that it's imagine Nightmare Before Christmas, but Freddy Krueger is the hero. I think about like a twist on that type of like you can die in this dream world. Your nightmares can actually kill you, but instead you're not alone. Yet there's someone out there who is this nameless, unsung hero because you don't remember who he is when you wake up, and he's just cursed to live this life in our nightmares and save us, and we don't remember him. So he's the Dream Master. And it's just a really cool series I get to write, and I get to have a lot of fun in that setting. You know, when you're talking about the dream world, it's like there's no limits with that.
It's a scary, I don't say it's the scariest comic book, but I'm saying like I haven't been into like horror films until this year, really. Yeah. And my wife was like, "Are you gonna be okay? You're gonna go kill someone now or something like that?" Because like literally in the month of October, I watched like 30 horror films, and I was like, "Yeah, but it was Halloween, you have to do that." Yeah. But I was thinking to myself that one of the scariest places anything can ever happen to you is after you fall asleep, because I feel like that's the place for you to rest, to relax, to rejuvenate. And if you fall asleep and you could die. Not just from like having a heart attack, but like you could die in those dreams, those nightmares. It's freaking scary, dude.
I mean, there's a lot of horror elements that we put in this, and we're soliciting it as a horror book. But horror has so many subgenres too. So if I could tack on another one to that, it would be a horror fantasy or a fantasy horror. Because we're going on an adventure too. We're going to learn more about who the Dream Master is, and there are rules in this world. We don't get to just he whipped out this thing, this magical item that saved the day that he never had this entire time. So so it is grounded in that aspect, and like I said, it's a lot of fun to write because it is as a horror fan myself. This is the comic book that I would want to read when I hear, a horror book. So I'm having a great time on it.
It does, toe that line, which is great because again, not being into horror until this year, now I feel like I'm really into it and I can watch some more obscure things and read some more. I mean, I've been reading horror comic books for the past couple of years anyway. I mean, there's been a lot of
Sure.
great out there, but that
Oh, yeah.
borderline one where it's like I can. This is a scary book to read before bed, but like I can read it in bed, and not get nightmares.
Yes,
I
yes.
feel like Nailbiter
Yeah, yeah,
was from
yeah.
Joshua Williams.
Right.
That book, honestly, I think did give me nightmares when I went to sleep. I was like,
Yes.
I got to stop reading this when I go to bed, man. This is like
Right.
not good for my sleep.
The Department of Truth does the same thing for me. Even though I don't think that's solicitous as a horror book,
it,
but it gives me the heebie-jeebies sometimes. There's been a
it's
few issues where it's like, man, James, come on, dude, you gotta put a warning label on this thing sometimes, because
it's
I was looking over my shoulder.
it's probably not solicited as a horror book, but you know what? James Tinian touching
Yeah.
that thing probably has a little horror
Oh, of
background
course.
in it anyway. So
Yeah, I mean that's where he really shines too in that genre. So yeah.
where did this come from? Like, how did this start? How did they get to write Dream Master?
Well, long story. Black Box Comics is it's their own IPs. This isn't my own creation that I submitted to them. They came to me out of a recommendation from a good friend of mine named Travis, who does the show Comics with Bueller, and he reached out to them. He's like, I'm a real big fan of the recount. You should really get this guy, Jonathan, to write a comic book for you. So he linked us up, Demetrius and him and I had like a long phone call back it was MegaCon 2021 that him and I were talking. We first, just kind of swapped each other's stories, explained like what my strengths are, what kind of comic books I like to write. And he's like, he said, when we have something for you that fits in that, area, I'll let you know. So, months went by, I kept on, kept in touch, just saying, hey, if you think of anything, let me know. And finally he had the synopsis of Dream Master, which was like about a page and a half of what outline of what he wanted for it. And just said, what can you do with this? So I gave him my thoughts, and then that led to issue 1, and then the ball just started rolling, and it was, gave me the green light, and I just kept on writing scripts. So it took a while. I'm thrilled that end of this month is going to be the issue 1, because it's been in the works for a long time.
Yeah, I bet that there's that, getting it done is a great
Mhm.
accomplishment to you, but then like, it's like recording this, get it
Yeah.
done, you edit it, and then you're like, okay, at least today we're recording this, and we're releasing it on Wednesday, but
Yeah.
I recorded one this morning that's releasing next Wednesday, and I'm like, I just want people to hear it.
Yeah.
Like, let's go, let's get it out to the people,
Yes.
and I want to hear some people's feedback. And so it is even funny enough that you talked about Dream Master not that long ago, and I'm still thinking that we booked this and the comic book was coming out. It's still not out, and it's not out until the 30th of November. So I can imagine how much you want people to read it in your side of the thing.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Writing comic books is a slow process from idea, conception, to actually holding it in your hand. It does not happen quickly. I think a lot of people don't understand that too. They think that, oh, you wrote this comic book because you saw that movie last week. Like, no, I already thought about this a long time ago. I got a lot of flack about the recount because of the things that were happening. Like, no, that was like 2 years ago I wrote that. Not my fault that life imitates art. So
yes, exactly. They copied you. No.
Yeah. This is a good idea. We should do this in the real world.
Weirdly, someone used it as a handbook. I don't know. They got it in the wrong section. The trade was in the wrong section at BAM or Borders or whatever. Yeah. They did they put you up with Luigi in DC and Ruben, or did you have to get the people to help you with the book?
No, Black Box it handled all that, which is a great a change for me. A lot of my self-published IPs are me also being the project manager throughout. So this I removed me from that equation, even though I was brought in to we have group chats and we talk and bounce things off of each other, but not having to put the team together, pay for everyone's part was a blessing, which let me focus more on the story, the creative side, but so grateful that Luigi's on it. I mean, I think him and I have a great writer-artist relationship. The things he can do is just amazing. And I really didn't, when I wrote that first issue, I didn't know what he was capable of. I went through his Instagram page, looked at what his art style was, but then when he came back with those first pages for issue 1, I think I was either middle of writing issue 3 or just about to write issue 3, and I was like, oh man, I need to give this guy bigger pages. So I started throwing in double splash pages and multiple one splash pages, because he can, he doesn't waste a square centimeter of art in this whole entire series. I mean,
yes,
the covers alone, he volunteered to do wraparounds for the A covers. I mean, how that is usually an incentive or a variant or a retailer exclusive. All the A's are wraparounds by the interior artist. How crazy is that?
And it's like, and it's funny when you could say, oh yeah, I did wraparounds, and they're good. It's not like
right, yeah.
But he has like this style that I think that I like, that gives me a little, like, I don't know, the main girl character in the first issue has a little bit of, I don't know, I want to say Todd McFarlane-esque facial things, but then also his monsters. I mean, it's like, and so you have this a person with the ability to draw good people, but also good monsters. Sometimes you have one or the other. Their people look kind of funny, but the monsters are amazing. And this, it's like when you get some of that part where there is some monsters and things in this, some creatures, I should say, not monsters, some creatures. You don't get, it's not like, oh, but when you start off with seeing the little girl, you're like, oh, I that looks like a person. So his artwork is unbelievable, and then obviously adding the colors to it, the purples and blues through the whole thing are beautiful on this book too. So it's cool because they're not. I read a book recently that I felt like I had to like say the one thing I didn't like about it was the computer generated style of colors and that modern, almost big two. Publishers where they use that modern colors scheme that I just don't like that much, and this is more like the colors that I like, that it seems like someone worked hard to color that book.
Ruben, the colorist, really has his work cut out for him, having, because of the detail of Luigi's pencils and inks. Ruben really, it's not easy, but I believe Luigi did recommend Ruben to Black Box, and he comes back with the colors and it just elevates it. It's already cranked up to 10 by Luigi, and then he just cranks it up to 11. Ruben does. I'm just amazed. I'm blown away all the time. Every time I get pages back, it's just so cool, to see these things just like come to life. And going back to Luigi and his, like, he likes to do like disturbing things like and that's great, because every issue, I'm like, all right, what kind of crazy, demon, monster, creature can I throw in this? What kind of warped thing can I do? Now that I know Luigi can handle it, and on top of it, enjoys it. My art direction doesn't have to be, a full page per panel to describe what I want. I can just be like, all right, this creature is a demon now. Make it happen, Luigi. And he does, and then some. So it's really cool.
And it's not just the people either. I just like glancing through it again. So like the benefit is that I was writing a review for the site. And so I read that. Then I was like, okay, I'm going to read it again. So I read it again first just to read it, get it over with. Then I read it again, wrote some notes. And then I read it again last night, getting ready for this. And one of the benefits of doing something like that with the first issue is, the third time I read it, I just looked at the backgrounds. The backgrounds are so detailed and cool, and it's a dream world. So you get this ability to like warp things and add stupid things in there that are not in your real life things. So there is some almost disturbing things in the background, skulls or whatever there may be, and they're all in detail. And it reminds me of a conversation I had with my buddy Steve Mardo, who drew a comic book for Scout or Black Caravan, whatever it was. And he did this whole page that was super detailed and gave it over to a colorist. And the colorist was like, you suck. He's like, you
Yeah.
don't need to put there's a phone in the background. It can have a black screen. You don't need to put something on the little phone screen in the background. You suck so bad.
Yeah.
But like, I could picture, the colorist looking at Luigi's artwork and being like, come on, man. But if they've worked together before, then, or
Yeah.
like each other, at least I'm sure they enjoy doing it.
Yeah. This Ruben is, he's wonderful. Like I said, he's got his work cut out for him, but I can tell he enjoys it. The conversations I've had online with him, he's psyched. He's sharing the project. Yeah, I've worked with a lot of colorists, and they're all great. But usually they get done with the job and they're on to the next one. But Ruben, as a colorist, he's sharing and promoting, and he's psyched about this project too. So that says a lot when he's invested in it.
Yes, yeah, and so who I talked to this morning that's going to be out next week was Chrissy Williams and Lauren Knight from the book Roll and Rage, and they talked about letterers are also pretty things that people tend to forget. And I feel like, so we have a creative team on this thing. You have you and the artist, obviously you have the colorist, the letterer, and then, giving credit to the editor too, because someone needs to look over the book. But the letterer and the letters in this thing are great too. So DC Hopkins kicked butt on this one too.
Heck yeah. And when I found out DC was going to be the letterer, I was so thrilled. I mean, I already knew who DC was. He's done a ton of books. He's been Ringo nominated and everything. And I didn't find out until I saw the trade dress for issue 1. And then I was looking, I was like, is that DC Hopkins? and then I almost got like a little bit starstruck, I'm like, oh no, what if he thinks I'm a terrible writer and he thinks my script sucks and he doesn't like how my script formatting is. But yeah, super happy that DC is on this book. He's a busy guy, so busy. My wife and I, we were in Baltimore previous weekend for the Ringo Awards because her book got nominated, and DC was there too. But it was so busy, everyone was so excited. I was in the same room with DC, and we didn't get a chance to even shake hands or high five or take a selfie together. But next time, and we have been in contact. But he likes the book too. He thought it was really cool, which is a big compliment for me. I took it's a great project, man. I couldn't be more thrilled with everyone that's on it. I really am blessed.
It's and what the word bubbles, one being purplish and the white and then the black, also makes it easier for the reader like myself to decipher who's talking. And I don't know if we had this conversation last time, but I was not very good at reading when I was younger, and so comic books have always been that I can picture the person talking because the bubble's right above them. I know who was talking. Whereas a novel is obviously not that easy because of the fact that you have to remember who's who and all that stuff. And having different color bubbles makes it even easier for that. And it's something that's funny because if this was real, there wouldn't be speech bubbles.
Right.
But it gives it kind of like an idea that maybe people speak different accents or, that kind of thing too. So obviously if it's a different language, we usually, letterers and you guys usually say it's a different language and then translate it. But I like that difference though.
Me too. And I was hoping that Dream Master would have his own unique color for his word balloons. And when I first saw I got to read it for the first time and I saw that, I was like, oh, thank you. I'm sure that was a conversation Demetrius had with DC, since Demetrius it's his project. But yeah, I was so happy with some of the bad guys had the black word bubbles. I think that stands out a lot because I compared the comic book a little bit to Spawn. So I love how Spawn is lettered. So that Spawn books throughout the whole entire 300 plus issues have been beautifully lettered throughout the years. So I'm glad that it has a similar tone to that in the lettering.
It just seems like you have a home run for a team here with Demetrius creating, starting this whole project. You, DC, Luigi, Robert, who should I say? Ruben, sorry. All that together seems like it was an awesome team to put together. Is it? So obviously you mentioned it's easier in the sense that you don't have to manage those people, but do you have some freedom on where the story goes, or is Demetrius feeding you things as you go along?
Yeah, I mean, I get to take it where I want to, but if Demetrius is like, well, that's not where we want to go quite yet with the character, let's save that further down the road, then I gotta reel it back in a little bit. Some things we've had discussed and we've changed in the script here and there, but it's been, for the most part, I'm not like boxed into like any corner or anything like that. So
Yeah, I
a
mean,
lot.
it seems like a lot of like a TV show. When they create a property from a book to a TV show,
Mhm.
obviously they a lot of times, like for example, I don't know, The Walking Dead's a bad one, but The Walking Dead,
Yeah,
they took some liberties, and obviously they're like, oh, I
right,
want to do this. Like, well, we can't do that because we're planning that in the future, or you can't use this character because of that. But they
right.
still had some freedom to do smaller things. It sounds like.
Exactly. Yeah, like the synopsis, the page and a half didn't list every single character.
Yeah,
We had like two characters in the synopsis, and of course it needed more than that.
yeah.
So I'm bringing in all these other characters, and this I'm working on the second volume right now. So there's a new villain too that gets added to the mix that I got to introduce and mix in with all these other characters that we see in the first volume. So yeah, I have freedom to an extent to build this world, larger, and that's what I'm getting paid to do, and having fun doing it.
Yeah, and it's also nice, almost a sense that it could be considered co-written if you think about it with
Yeah,
Demetrius. So you have some help where like
right.
I always like the team aspect. I like working by myself, but I always like the team aspect because someone else is going to think about something that you didn't think about, or you're going to
Exactly.
bring something to Demetrius and say, "Hey, this is what I really would like to go with it." He's like, "Well, I actually didn't think about that," and
Right.
it's a great thing to have that team effort, and then
Yeah.
both of you don't have to do everything.
Exactly.
And so
Yeah. Share the wealth. The team effort. It goes a long way. That's for sure.
so is this you have an ongoing series right now? This is the ongoing series. I mean, like
Yeah.
obviously the recount was
Hmm.
certain number of issues at the time. Obviously,
Right.
we
Right.
talk a little bit about the future of that at some point.
Mhm.
You had a couple of one shots coming out
Mhm.
recently. You have a bunch of these books that are not like ongoing. Do you like this ongoing thing?
I do. One of the things that's the hardest part of writing is the ending. I think the everything beyond that is the funnest part, but the ending is you can have a great beginning and middle, but if you don't have a good ending, that people will remember the endings more than
Mm-hmm.
anything else. Like all the popular TV shows in history. People are like, "Yep, great series. Hated how it ended."
Yep.
It's like, forget the 11 years that Seinfeld or whatever was
Yep.
on. That one last episode
Yep.
didn't wet their whistle.
Yeah.
It all goes out the window. But knowing that it's ongoing, gives us a lot to do. But there's also its own challenges too. Like, so many things I want to do, but I also don't want to, spend that too
Mhm.
quickly too. And Demetrius is good at letting me know, like, hey, let's wait further down the road, maybe, which is a good thing to have. Like, okay, great. If you want me to wait till issue 50 to do that, that's great. That means there's 50 more issues for me to write. So yeah, I hope it can go on for that long and be attached to it for that long.
And it's nice that Demetrius is the one in charge of it. So like
Mhm.
he's the one that has the say on whether or not they make issue 50 or not. So
Exactly.
it's not like your series, you're trying to get to 50 and someone
Right.
above you is like, yeah, you can stop at 10. You know what I mean? Like, so you have this ability, the person, in charge of the project is the one that came up with the story to start
Yeah.
with. So that's pretty cool in that sense.
Yeah.
But it's also based in we talked about with Luigi's art in a crazy environment compared to what you have been doing more
Sure.
recently. I mean, like, with Caffeinated Hearts that I have behind me, that's great, based in basically the real world.
Yeah.
Hyper aware, but that's space, but like it's still
Yeah.
not dream world. It's not
Right.
in another dimension of sorts. It's still grounded in some sense. That must be cool too, to have that ability to, like, you said rules,
Yeah.
but really there's broader ability to do things in something like Dream Master, huh?
Yeah, exactly. It provides a lot more storytelling, and that's what this type of series brings to the reader is storytelling.
Mhm.
You can go to different places, and it's my goal in every issue that we're not just in one dream setting. We jump from different places. I like to kind of compare it to that movie Looper from a while back. No, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, not Looper. Jumper.
Oh, Jumper. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
I love Looper, by the way. But that was a time travel one. But
yeah.
Jumper, the guy that teleported and he just jumped to different settings all over the place. That was awesome. You know, um, so I think
Oh,
that that comic book has to feel like you turn the page and they're in this whole other setting.
yeah.
Um, yeah, it's I think that's also how we dream too.
Mhm.
Our dreams are random and bizarre and take us to different places. So I want the readers to have that feeling when they put down the issue too.
It also wouldn't be that great of a comic book to read if it's like your nightmare is the failing the test that you're supposed to take the next day. Like that would be
Right.
kind of boring of a dream world.
Yeah.
Or
You're naked at school or
yes.
work or you're peeing in your pants.
Yeah, I don't want to read that.
Right.
It's too real.
Right.
um I do love the joke. I don't want to give too much away in the book. I don't want to give anything away in the book. You should pick it up on November 30th. But is they do a portal at
Mm.
one point, and I love, why didn't you just portal us up to the
Yeah,
to
right.
the
Yeah.
space, the wherever they were going? And it was just
Yeah.
kind of funny to me. I was like, yeah, that's a joke, because that's kind of the joke they made on Doctor Strange, where like they
Yeah.
portal to my magic only works so far.
Yeah.
On Doctor Strange, that is. I just like that was funny. That's like, see, that I love a book that has obviously some seriousness to it, because
Mm.
characters can die,
Right.
and there's monsters and creatures and things like that. But also, you know what? I mentioned to someone the other day that like every funeral out there, someone laughs at one point during the
Yes.
funeral, because there's nothing completely 100% serious in this world
Mm.
that you can't have a little bit of like, oh, John used to like to do this, now he's dead. Like,
Right.
but like, it's like you have this comedy, so like having that light humor here and there
Mm.
breaks up things and make it seems, honestly to me, more realistic.
Yeah, and it goes back to what I was saying about the rules.
Yeah.
We're in this dream world, but we need to make sure we're not using it as a crutch too.
Mm.
So that scene that you're referring to not only like builds that little relationship between Dream Master and the girl, and she's asking questions like a little girl would do, like, and he's kind of getting annoyed by it. But we're also learning as in this first issue how this world and the rules work too,
Mm.
which is an important thing to have in that in the first issue, so people can kind of get subscribe to it. They're like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, he can't just cheat. There's a reason why, and there's some thought put into this. Yeah, because uh, people, you're always going to have the reality police, and the comic book community is not low at all in the reality police. But yeah, you can explain a few things here and there, but sometimes you have to be like, dude, it's a comic book.
Yeah. Like we do. I mentioned many times before to people is I like comic books that are based in real world, but have one or two things that are drastically different that makes it a
Yes.
comic book and makes it fake. I mean, I would hate to just read a comic book about like a war that's happening right now and it's like realistically going on. You can make something that's like, compares itself to that, but still separate, like Iron Man 1, the movie was, based in the Middle East, but it's not like Iron Man was physically at the war in the Middle East. But like how this is like, it's based in the real world, that this little girl has a dream. And so it has that slight change that makes it fake. You have to go, okay, this is not real.
Yeah.
And then say, I just watched Terrifier 2. Did you see that yet?
No, not yet. I don't want to though.
It's just funny because like there's certain things that someone said so gross. I'm like, yeah, but I'm watching it going, I know this is fake. Like so it's hard for me to just be like, oh yeah, that's gross. I'm not gonna puke, vomit, or faint like some people have been doing, because I know it's fake and I know it's not real blood. And so reading a comic book like Dream Master and going, oh, that person it's a comic book. It's not real, people. It's fake.
Yeah.
Let's escape world for a little bit and go into comic books.
Exactly. That's what I was gonna say. It's escapism. That on that subject, that's why a lot of people, no, I wouldn't say a lot of people, but some of the criticisms I got from the recount was it was too grounded in reality. I'm like, yeah, I mean, I can't help that it came out when it did. And so it's not escapism for some people.
Yeah.
But that's always, that's subjective anyways in the first place. So I think a lot of people go into the comic book store to just have something fun to read, and a lot of people are searching for a comic book, that classic escapism, and I think they're going to find this in Dream Master. This is some place that they haven't seen, and they don't know what's going to happen on the next page.
Yeah, in the Dream Master himself is almost, well, I could say Dream Master themselves, because honestly, you really technically don't know. But they're wearing a costume, and they have weapons, and they're saving someone in it. So like you have this superhero-esque person. I mean, I call him a superhero or a supervillain, either way. It's there's a character-esque of a traditional comic book in it.
Exactly.
Excuse me. And so there's that to it as well. But yeah, at the end of the year, my buddy Paul, who owns a local comic book shop in the area, are going to do our comic books of the year on the podcast. And I realized that I don't know if there's any big two comic books this year that really fit that mold for me. Yeah. That it was that the 10 comic books that I love the most this year, comic books that have this real world, as I don't know, I just had this, but it has a little bit of escapism in it, and I feel like that's what Dream Master has, which is pretty cool. Technically, sorry, Dream Master won't qualify because it has to have 3 issues released in 2023. It would qualify next year. Okay. So make sure that issues 3, 4, 5, and 6 are all amazing, and then you're all set.
Will do.
Yeah, that was our only stipulation. I said 3 issues have to be released because, I mean, honestly, you could read the best issue ever that like on December. It's not really fair the entire year. And the same thing in January of last year, if a series that was unbelievable ended, it's like only 1 issue came out this year. So yeah, our rules are 3 issues. So next year Dream Master will be in the running for sure.
That's fair.
Because honestly, every year I would just pick the recount, right? I mean, that's, you know me.
Yeah, just have to keep on putting out one shot every year for the recount.
Honorable mention is the recount. Justin, that doesn't count. No, sorry.
Yeah,
right.
You gotta have some rules.
Yes, absolutely. And so Dream Master is just a fun book that, like, the cool thing is, to me, it was like I wanted more recount, which we're gonna get, but it was like, so I was like, oh, I'll read this. I mean, I like Jonathan's work. We'll read it. And then I read it. I was like, okay, I'm really happy about this. This is a great book, and it's exciting. And so these kind of books, there's also something to say that when I like someone's writing, they could actually be a bad book, and it's probably still a good book. I love Brian Michael Bendis, one of my favorite writers of all time. And he just wrote the Ones, which was really good, but it also could have been just good. And I thought it was really good because I like Brian Michael Bendis.
Of course. Yeah. We all like what we like, and we go into some things already, a fan, I think, and that kind of sways our opinion, or we go into something already hating it, and that sways it too. So
I'm to blame on that. I'm a big Marvel fan, right? And we have a comic book graphic novel club, which the recount is on that list of books to read. We just read Batman: The Long Halloween, and I'm not a DC fan at all. Like, I just don't get into it. I don't like the universe of it at all. And my buddy Paul, who owns the shop, this is one of his favorite books of all time. And so, but when I went into it, I opened the first page, I sadly went, I don't like DC, so I'm not going to like this. And it did affect me as I read the book. There was a great book for what it was. It just didn't resonate with me like it did with him. And there's that. I wish I could just flick the switch and be like, you don't know anything about this. Read the book. And then at the end, you can switch your switch back on. But like, so I wasn't a big fan of it, and he was kind of disappointed that he thought this was what's going to get me over to DC. And but it's worth reading because it is what they base a lot of movies and stuff off of. Is this story?
A lot of them pull from Long Halloween for sure. I think definitely Nolan's trilogy and the latest Matt Reeves to an extent as well, for sure.
But so Dream Master comes out November 30th from Black Box Comics, and that we're now. We're a couple weeks away when this releases. Issue 2 drops in December.
Yep,
So make
December
sure you get on
28th.
that. Yeah.
Yep.
And then obviously January and so on, so on,
Yeah.
so on
Issue
until
3 is
they
ready for pre-order right now too. So
until they cancel you. No, it's I'll tell you right now, one of the benefits of doing things like this is I get to read it ahead of time, and it's a very, very, very good book, and I recommend it to anybody. I wouldn't just say that. I do talk before that people do solicit us all the time to do reviews, to do get on the podcast. And the very beginning of the podcast was like, of course, let's get people on here. And then I got to a point where I read a comic book that was not good. And my former co-host, who had to move on for right now, but he read it too. He's like, he separately texted me and like, we're not doing this, right? And I was like, yeah, sorry, I didn't realize it was this bad. So nowadays it's a little bit nice. Now I have such a full schedule, it's easy for me to just to say I don't have time. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm already booked till the end of January on here. So yeah. So we'll fit people in if they want to come in. If
that's a good problem to have.
Yeah, it is. But I wanted to quickly chat on a couple of things we were able to get to really quickly on last time we were on. Is obviously you just released Caffeinated Hearts recently, as well as Hyper Aware. I don't my LCS it was for some reason didn't come in. He probably didn't order it. But I have one coming in, so I don't have that right now. But I do have Caffeinated Hearts. This book to me was going to be out of the 2 books that you came out with recently. You know how you pick one, you're like, okay, this is the ones I want to read. I was going to be like Hyper Aware. That's going to be my book. It ended up being Caffeinated. I like both of them, but Caffeinated Hearts ended up being the book that I was like, again, talking about being different. It's a really cool book, and the artwork is so unique in my opinion.
Thank you.
That it adds so much to it. Who's the artist on it again?
Stefano Cardacelli, who him and I worked together before on Freak Show Night, that was published by Second Sight, and then Space Cadet, which was published by Scoot, the all ages imprint at Scout. Do you already have it slabbed back there, or is it just resting?
No.
I was like, damn, that's impressive, man.
It's Something's Killing the Children, #1. That's the impressive part, right?
That is, yeah. I was like, wow, I need to talk to your CGC guy.
Exactly, right? No way.
I can't get turnarounds like that. But yeah, Stefano kills it. He has this great chaotic style that I think lends to many different genres, and that's why him and I have done 3 books in 3 different genres. Freak Show Night, gory zombie book. Space Cadet, this all ages fairy tale esque story, and then Caffeinated Hearts, a slice of life book set in this like cyberpunk backdrop. And I just really enjoy working with him, and it's an honor every time I get to work with him. He's a multi-award-winning comic book artist, published by Heavy Metal Magazine, Bram Stoker award-winning, and he's crushing it. He could. I don't know why he's not doing big 2 covers left and right. But
this would be the people who love the artwork of this would be one of those people like you people who go see your Scotty Young covers, your Peach Momoko covers, like the covers that people go from a distance. You're like, I know who that is. This would be the same way in a DC or a Marvel book. You'd be like, I know Stefano. Yeah, that's who that is. The cool thing to me about this is that it was a one shot, so it was one and done, which was really cool. But I wanted more. If that's amazing. I wanted like almost each individual story in the book to be its own book, and then. But I feel like you would have had to fill a lot of fluff in there to make it, the way that it is. But I also the messiness of his artwork. Can be a turnoff in my opinion. So like we talked about Department of Truth to start off here. Is the Department of Truth to me is such a great book. I am not a huge fan of Martin Simmons' artwork just because of how messy it is and how like obscure it really is. He's very talented. I can't do that. But you need to have a good writer, in my opinion, for me to even make it through that book. So obviously James is an unbelievable writer. So same with this. I love your writing so much that this was easy to get through. And it's not super. I mean, you can tell who she is. The biggest thing to me on Martin Simmons is I get lost with some of the characters in the Department of Truth. You know who she is, and you know who the other people in the book are. So it's Stefano does better on that. But having a good writer and having that art style does help. Have a good writer.
Yeah, well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I've over the years I've learned Stefano's strengths. That my first book I did with him with Freak Show Night had multiple panels, like 7-9 panels, some pages, and I realized this putting him in these little small squares isn't where he's going to shine. So that's why for Space Cadet we did every page is a one-page splash. And every page is a masterpiece, something that you'd want to hang on your wall. And that lends to that the audience that's supposed to go to, all ages, so everyone.
Well, my son's 18 months right now, and I'm not giving it to him yet just because I like the book, so I don't want him to ruin it yet. I gave him one comic book. My buddy who owns a comic book store got Diamond accidentally drop shipped him 100 copies of Spider. He orders 25 copies of a book. So this is the size comic book they're talking about. Maybe less than that most of the times. 100 copies of the Greg Land variant of Spider Gwenverse number 5.
Some random.
Literally got a box of this thing, and he contacted them multiple times. They never. So he's he's giving them out on not free comic book day, but Halloween or whatever. And I gave one to my son. He obviously immediately just crumpled the whole thing. I'm haha, you're not getting any of my comic books yet.
You proved you're not worthy yet.
They don't make slip cases that go every page, so that you can't break it. But one day he'll get it, and that makes sense. The big splash pages on it, he's going to pull the attention into on those pages, and this is the same similar style.
And with Caffeinated Hearts, it was, there's a lot of double page splashes, a few one-page splashes, and then most of those vignettes that are in there are they're no more than 4 panels per page. So Stefano, I think he those books I work with on him, they're successful because of him. They see that artwork and they're like, whoa, I want to get this book. Then they ask what it's about, and then I go into my pitch. So super talented guy. I look forward to working with him some more.
Yeah, and as I said, I was super happy about that one. I think the title I used or something like that for the review was a much needed pick me up, because there is this, when I read the recount, I need something to go pick me up after getting done with it. And that's what the Caffeinated Hearts was to me. Hyper Aware was really good too. I don't want to take too much time to talk about everything, but Hyper Aware is available also a one shot from Source Point. Out there. And because I really wanted to talk really quickly, if you could say the recount's coming back. Is there anything else you can tell me about it?
So it only takes place a few months after the events of the first volume. I wanted to do it a year or two later, but I had conversations with my editor Andrea Molinari, who's returning from the first volume. I think he's the biggest fan of the recount series. So when he gives me a suggestion for a change, I'm like, okay, this must mean something. So, but we're dealing with the ramifications of a nationwide event. So it's not going to be a carbon copy of the first volume, but it's more like people are still looking over their shoulder. We're having to fill in these voids in our political system with people, and we're not going through the checks and balances as fast as we could. It's more of the butterfly effect of what would happen. This happened in volume 1, and now what would our world be like afterwards? How are we going to pick up the pieces? And there's still someone out on the loose that orchestrated all that stuff. So what's going to, do they have a plan B? Do they have a contingency plan? So it's a lot of fun to write, but I'm also nerve-wracking writing it, because I keep on telling myself it doesn't have to live up to Recount 1. It just needs to be a good sequel. That's it. And if I keep that in mind, I think people will enjoy it for what it's worth. So
I mean, you like being in the world, the universe. You want to continue that on. So as long as it's good and it has that its own encompassing story to follow up with it. I mean, all of us fans who are fans of it are going to buy it and read it. And so I'm guessing it's another 5 issues. Is that what it was?
4. I'm aiming
4.
for.
Sorry, I keep on saying 5, but I just 4 issues. I don't know. Maybe it's because I have 27 different versions of the same issues. But a third prints and all that stuff. But no, it's the 4 issues again. To me, I mentioned that to the ladies this morning, Lauren Knight and Christy Williams. That's going to come out next week. Is Golden Rage is only 5 issues. So it was okay, you can commit to that. If it's not your thing, at least you can buy 5 issues of a series. So 4 issues,
Right.
$4 or $5 an issue. That's $20.
Yeah.
Like, come on, you can do that. It's no problem at all. So,
Yeah.
and the
Easy
trade is for number 1 is available right now at most
Yep.
local comic book shops or some big bookstores. I'm guessing too.
Yeah,
Amazon and all
it's
that
at
stuff.
Books a Million and Barnes and Noble.
Yep.
I walked past Barnes and Noble and I was like, hey, that's pretty cool. Sandwiched in between all the other trays. So I pulled it out and put it in front of someone else's book.
A couple of weeks ago, Charles Soule was at my
Oh.
buddy the shop in Bangor, and where I live
Wow.
here in Maine. He had just stopped by, go to Stephen King's house. He's looking from first
Yeah.
edition Stephen King book as the author, and he stopped by my buddy's shop. But the day before, my buddy thought that he had stopped by, and he says, "I wonder, I should go check my books to see," because he's heard of creators going through and just signing books and then leaving. And I was like, "That's pretty cool," except for the person who was like, "Someone scribbled in my book."
Yeah.
Like, I don't know who this person is.
I've never done that. I never go in to start signing because unlike novels,
Yes.
people are picky about that.
Yeah.
And you might have just caused a comic book shop to not sell a book. So
no, he didn't do that. So I'll let everybody know as a Charles Soule fan, he did not do that. He came back the next day and asked my friend, "Do you want me to sign some stuff?" He signed the wall too. He's actually got some signatures going up on the wall.
Cool.
But he's like, he had a couple Star Wars books that were out that week, and then 8 Billion Genies, like a 17th print of 8 Billion Genies. He was there, and he printed that. Yeah,
8 billion print of 8 billion.
I think they're looking for. That's why it's called 8 Billion Genies. It's going to get to issue 8 billion in reprints. It's insane. Because I'm one of those things that I love the series to like recount. I start to buy the first, the second, the third, fourth printings for some obscure reason, and so like now every time I see on his list coming out 8 Billion Genies 4th printing of number 4, I'm like, why do I need this?
Right. Yeah.
And the covers are all by Ryan Brown, so it's not even like there's like they're different. They're just variations of the same characters.
But it's such a good series, and he's such a good writer. I got to meet him several years ago before I was even publishing comic books. I was a fan of his run on this New 52 Swamp Thing, which he doesn't get much credit for because he had to follow Scott Snyder. And people have their opinions on New 52 and things like that. So, but I picked up his new series, first issue of Hell to Pay. I'm looking forward to reading that one. And man,
I am a big fan of that one. It's supposed to be a big universe too. It's supposed to be like a couple different offshoots of the same book are going to be bringing around this series and stuff like that too. It's funny because I'm a big Charles Soule fan too. I mean, I basically buy everything. I've read Letter 44 from
I love
Oni,
that.
Oni Press, and then Curse Words, obviously Curse Words, Undiscovered Country, all of his Star Wars stuff. But when I saw the book come out, I was like, oh, that sounds like a cool book. And then I was like, skipped over. I'm putting together my pull list for the comic book shop, and I'm like, what is this Hell to Pay? And I'm like, wait, Charles, how did I not know this was coming?
I know there's
I was too
so many
focused on
comics.
8 Billion Genie.
Right? Like, when did you have time to do that one too?
It's bad. It's one of those things I had to start. And the funny thing is, who's lost my business is Marvel. There's nothing there. The Marvel's great and I love it. It's just picking up my floppy comics every week. I would rather almost pick up a lot of these independent stories than something from the world of Hulk or whatever, because the stories to me, they need to step back and go back about 10 years, even 15 years, and go to the Secret Invasion, Civil War, Siege, those eras of comic books, in my opinion. And, back when Brian Michael Bendis was writing and Mark Millar was writing, those are what I want in the new Marvel. So a lot of it's been, if I can't afford the comic books, sorry. Marvel's going back on the shelf and I'm grabbing this thing from Black Box or something. It's just a sad thing to have to do, but I'm glad though.
Me too. I mean, we're in a golden age of indie comics, in my opinion. I think the comic book readers are picking up indies left and right, and there's no shortage of indie comic books. And we're getting more. The self-published is becoming more mainstream. People are buying crowdfunding books too. It doesn't need to have a fancy stamp on it of who the publisher is. People are going out, they're getting their favorite creators. They're following their creators. They're not just following their favorite publishers, because they got to be picky and choosy nowadays.
Mhm.
You know, there's so many. New comic book day is 50 plus comic books every single week. You know, no
Mhm.
one's picking up all those. So
And
yeah,
it used to be month to month, and now all of a sudden, I know you're like, okay, Damage Control #3 comes out for Marvel this week, and then last week you're like, last week and this week you're like, wait, Damage Control #4 is on here because of scheduling things. They just released it back to back weeks, and if you're reading that ongoing series, I'm like, God,
it's
I
so
don't pay
hard.
money for this.
Right. In between the money and having the time to read it,
Read it.
it's like, yeah, what are you gonna do?
And then reading some things. I mean, I just discovered my buddy Paul, who owns the shop, Revival, Tim Seeley book from back in 2012, 13. We completely wasn't even on our radar that the book even existed.
Yeah.
Him and I are both humongous Scotty Young fans, and he even did a variant cover for like issue 5 or something like that, or 12.
Random.
And so like I was like, how did we not hear about it? The book's unbelievable. And so I've even got that where I have to like read these new issues and then go, okay, but I want to go back into the Revival world. I got to get back into that world. And, you know, and I have an 18-month-old, so there's always that in there too.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. You're never gonna have enough time. There's not. You can't read. It's like the Twilight Zone episode where the guy broke his glasses and had all the time in the world. And
what we need is I need to get, when he's old enough, he needs to read a series. I need to read a series. Then we just need to tell each other about the series.
Cliff notes. Yeah.
There we go. And then we know about him, and then we'll move on from there. When he's old enough, I'll just get him to write for the site. Here, you review all these comic books right for those.
Yes, there you go. Delegate that.
Recount. Do you have a goal? Like, I know the dates are obviously obscure in this world nowadays anyway, but like, are you hoping beginning, early, middle, next, end of the year? What do you think?
I'm hoping that the first half of 2023 for at least the first issue.
Okay.
So yeah.
And are you going to try to do it monthly, or are you just going to put it out when you get them?
Well, put them out when I get them. Yeah. It's going to be, it's going to be better that way. So, because if I waited till I had all 4 in the can and then we did them month to month, it wouldn't be 2023.
No.
So I'm afraid that, you know, if we waited much longer, it's gonna lose its heat.
Yeah.
You know, so and people deserve a follow up to the recount.
And if it's good, people, which it will be in my opinion, people will wait, because I know the last run was amazing, and they released that thing over like 24 months for 5 issues. So I think we can wait a little bit in between if it has to be for the issues on that. And I love rereading some comic books that I really like. So when there's spread out like that, I read 1, and then a couple months later when 2 comes out, I read 1 again, and then 2, and then, you know, so on and so forth. So you end up reading the first few issues a couple of times, which is great.
I'm the same way. I sometimes there's a burden of when they come month to month too. It's like, God, where am I going to put this amongst all the other repiles?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, some of them you just wait. There's some mini series that I know are going to be like 8 Billion Genies I had to read because of the artist and author or writer combination and the whole storyline behind it. But if I knew it was pretty good and I want to read it, knowing it was only 8 issues, I might have waited for all 8 issues to come out and then read it. Kind of like a binging aspect of it. But that one I have to read every week because that's just so good too. Every month I should say.
That's a good one.
But yeah, we're in here to talk about Dream Master. So Dream Master, November 30th.
Yes.
You can get it at your local comic book shop. You can also get it at blackboxcomics.com. Is that what it is?
.net.
.net. You can get it there. Also down on there. Are you going any cons or anything like that after this comes out, or?
No, I don't have any in the books, but I submitted my application recently to all the fan expos. So hopefully they'll pick me up for one of them, and closest to MegaCon. So I probably will go to MegaCon next year. I submitted an application to Emerald City, New York Comic Con. I'm hoping to go to Heroes Con again. I'm trying to hit the top 5 major ones ish. That everyone has an opinion on which ones are the best, but no cons in the books. But I'm gonna be in New Orleans this Saturday, November 12th. Crescent City Comic Books invited me and my wife Francesca out there, so we're making the drive from east coast of Florida to New Orleans to check out a new comic book shop to us. So
that's awesome. I love that. I love that that stuff you can do together as a couple.
It helps.
Not only you guys are both like kind of in the industry together too, it's like
there's a benefit there.
But so you can grab it November 30th, and then tell your comic book shop to order 2 and 3 for you as well. Get that going, get that in your pull list, pull box, wherever it's called at your local comic book shop. And then look for the recount. I'm excited. Other things. And if you can get this, I mean, I'm sure there's still copies available. I mean, I'm not saying that in a bad way, but I'm sure that there's copies available of Caffeinated Hearts and Hyper-Aware. If you can get your LCS, can get those for you. Pick those up too. It's one shot. It's easy to read.
Easy.
Just do it. Pick those up. And obviously, you have stuff for sale. I've been eyeing the printing plates for them.
Oh, yes.
No one else is allowed to buy them. If your website had one of those installment payment plan things, I probably would have already purchased them, but no.
Link it up to PayPal and do
exactly. Something. I don't know, but so check out your website. Is it just jonathanhedrick.com?
JonathanHedrickComics.com.
Comics.com. Check that out. And then follow Jonathan on Facebook or Twitter, Instagram,
Facebook. Yep.
And you just type in Jonathan Hedrick, you'll come up because you're just no vowels in your name if you want.
Exactly. Easy.
But thanks to obviously Black Box, to all this stuff. Demetrius was nice. Demetrius has been retweeting some stuff also, obviously promoting his book and stuff. And congratulations on this, because I mean, Luigi knocked it out of the park. Everybody on the team knocked it out of the park. So I'm excited.
Thank you so much.
To see how it goes further. And obviously, you'll be back on at some point. We'll talk as we get closer to recount. We'll talk, or maybe after a few issues of this Dream Master comes out, where we'll do a spoiler issue. It's an episode at some point where we can actually talk about the book, because
that sounds good.
That's the downside of talking about a book before it comes out, is you really don't want to give anything away. So but awesome, man. I really appreciate it. Enjoy. You're back in Florida, so enjoy the warm weather down there. It was actually 70 something degrees for the past 3 days here in Maine.
Is that warm for you guys?
Record. It was like the average temperature in Maine on this weekend was about 45, 50. Ooh. It was in the mid 70s for 3 straight days here. So it was pretty insane.
I would take the mid 70s down here. That would be a relief.
Exactly. And no hurricanes. Outside. And no hurricanes, right?
Geez.
But I really appreciate it again. Thanks for coming on, and make sure you pick up November 30th, Dream Master LCS. Thanks, man.
Thank you.